We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. I know y'all tired of it, but we got a new season of The Past. Welcome to season 8, the Mamba Year. Podcast available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your podcast platforms. Here you'll get a dose of content related to tech, the productivity world, and most importantly, how to be a better you. The theme for this year, personally, is receiving grace. And we definitely want to do better with receiving it and being open to being a better us from who we were a year ago. So this is season 8 of The Past, and I hope you all enjoy. A little late this morning, but go ahead and do what we do, especially with it being somewhat of a, I use this term loosely, but somewhat of a Friday. I won't say off day, because you're never off. Even when you're on, even when you think you're off, you're still on. I will forewarn you, even without there being a necessary warning, there might be more noise because I'm, for lack of a better term, an hour late from when I would normally do this walk. So this will not be, it will still have the same flow and style to it, but there just will be excessive sounds because, as I've exposed without exposing, there's a reason why I prefer being a member of the 5 a.m. club. And one of those reasons, believe it or not, is there are less people outside. When I say less people, I mean less activity. No one in their right mind, except me, wants to get up early and do the stuff that I'm doing. And personally, I'm okay with that. You will see an excessive amount of walking the dogs. You will see an excessive amount of everyday traditional movement, but there's not as much traffic at 5 in the morning. 6, folks are up, people are getting ready for work, everyone is in the midst of starting their day, yada, yada, yada. So I'm doing this I'm doing this recording, interestingly, because yesterday a video came up, and this is one of those indifferent ideas, but it's a reality to, I guess, edging the process along. And the process being with the relationship with technology. So let's face it, let's call it what it is. Yes, I use technology a vast majority of my time and my day. My tablet has a very dominant usage. My phone has an even more dominant usage. And my laptop, whether it's my work or personal, get their very fair share of PDA. And between those 3 or 4, it can be a little too notification heavy. I'll say it that way. And why I'm starting with that, or why I'm making this a impromptu yet beneficial walkcast is because I don't think as consumers, and consumers not in the aspect of buying products online, consumers of our mobile devices. Because whether we think it is or not, an iPhone, Android, a iPad, a Galaxy Tab, whichever Android tablet you use, our MacBooks, our Windows laptops, our Linux computers, if we're using that, all have some form of a content connection, whether we claim they do or not. Each of these devices does a thing, and it's probably the most level, it's the most high level threatening thing that I never paid any attention to until I really stopped and looked at it and realized that it does this thing. And that is hit you with notifications left and right. If you are not cautious enough, you are literally, if you have the more apps that you have that have notifications in this regard, the more that you're told about different things. For instance, obviously I'm walking, but if I were driving, say, towards a facility or a business, and I have that business's app downloaded, for whatever reason, that particular app will decide, hey, let's trigger an alert to said individual. And the way they do this, whether we are a fan of it or not, is through um, location or location, geotagging. There's so many different technical terms without going overboard. But these triggers happen from just your everyday walk and talk. Meaning, if I get up and, like I said, if I drive by a Starbucks, as soon as my car, as soon as my phone realizes that I'm near Starbucks, hey, did you want to get? They have a special going on today, where if you get so much, if you have so many points, you can earn double points by stopping at Starbucks. So because of how the brain is wired, we can't turn down Starbucks. And I'm not saying it's literally, but it's mindset enablement. We can't turn down Starbucks. We gotta have a fresh cup of whatever your preference is, hot, cold, non-coffee, whatever. And in doing this, this makes us feel good. And in some instances, the thing that's so ironic, you don't even have to be in their app for a lengthy period of time. You acknowledge receiving that notification, you're reacting to the notification, and it's now caused you to, for lack of a better term, go out and get Starbucks. So this makes us happy to some degree. But then we're unhappy because we bought Starbucks. We may or may not be productive having Starbucks, but we fulfilled the void. And most importantly, we acknowledged the notification provided from said application. Now I'm using the food application or drink application. And in in iOS land, it's known as shopping and food. because they categorize things for a reason. And then, to make matters worse, the alerts that you receive the most are the ones that you read the least. And what I mean by that, or what that looks like, is any email client, I don't care which one you use. Currently, I've found myself in a unpredictable yet enjoyable chokehold with Spark, but Spark sends you alerts for everything. So I use Spark, and that's across all three platforms, all three iOS platforms, because I don't install that on my work computer, obviously. Spark, Gmail, and the default mail client. The default mail client, thankfully, doesn't. I don't have a Gmail account attached to it because there's no need. However, my Gmail account is set to priority inbox. Spark doesn't have priority inbox, but Spark is a, and I'm going to be reaching with what I'm about to say, but Spark is viewed as a getting things done ecosystem. And I watched a guy's video yesterday who he is he is invested in the Apple ecosystem to the extent of using notes, using reminders, calendar, and email. Well, actually, no, notes, reminders, and calendar. Whereas with me, I'm kind of a little different. When I'm in that position of knowing to use them, I'm more attached to Things 3, and it's not even because I'm paying for the subscription. It's more I like how Things 3 helps me with the reminders and the notifications of the simple things. Like it's dumb to say, but getting a notification every morning, make your bed, and if you don't make it, and then you have this check mark that's just sitting there, which I've had happen, it's a, it's a, it's almost like a PA announcer um, in school, elementary, middle, high school, just kind of giving you like daily announcements. Uh, Note wise, I use notes, but I don't use notes, and this is gonna sound weird because I have Google Keep, and even with Google Keep, I don't jot down. Like I don't really, as shocking as it might seem, there aren't a lot of note taking options that I use per se on in the iOS world. At one time, anyone who knew me knew I was and will forever be an Evernote guy. And the funny thing is, I converted to Notion, but Notion right now, and this is just me speaking honest truth, Notion has turned me into a a template pulling individual. Let's see, calendar. I've held on to. I think Google Calendar and I have been best friends for over 15 years. Like I think, my Twitter page is 16. Will be 16 this year because I made it in 2008. In the time of me being on Twitter, if not longer, I have literally been the one of the largest or biggest users of Google Calendar. I think Google Calendar does what I need tenfold. Technically speaking, I've had my Google ecosystem love hate relationship, if you will, because I use Google Tasks from time to time. But most of the time, with tasks or planning things in that realm, I'm usually going pen and paper. And I think note taking wise, it's the same thing because I think I've taken so many notes and I've ordered or owned so many notebooks that I've I found that it's better to start using what I have instead of going for more. And sometimes that's hard, especially for my writers, my notebook enthusiasts, my pen lovers. It's hard out here for us. We know the vibes. We know the vibes. Trust me. Um, but I'm giving all of that context, and I'm talking about all of it because I added a new uh, mode, focus mode, on my phone, and it is called shutdown. So many of you don't know this, and many of you don't think about this, and I've never thought about it until seeing these focus modes in action. When I was in school, I didn't really use any like talking about it, but for some reason lately, I've kind of almost attached my day according to what my focus mode should be. So, for instance, when I get to when my when I arrive to work, my phone automatically goes into um, it goes into work mode. When I arrive home, it goes into personal mode. When I get in the car, a lot of people don't do this, and it's everybody got their thing. When I'm in my car it goes into driving mode, which is why even with me trying it and it didn't really work very well, I want to get a better handle. Like I want to find a good mount or display to have in my car that can play music and help me with reducing screen time. Because it does help when you're driving to just be driving. Because for whatever reason, right now, um, whenever you're driving, for some reason, that's the time of the day when everybody wants to talk to you. And I'm like, I don't mean no harm. Y'all can wait. And I've really become very intentional about that. When I work out, so when I do my morning walks, when I do my different exercises, like if I go to when I go to the gym on Mondays or whatever day if it's a different day, once I start my workout, it automatically goes into fitness mode. So those features are very valuable to have. Now, this conversation is going to get a little bit more in depth. So if I get a little too technical, my bad. Just roll with it. There are profiles with every profile. A lot of people don't know this. This is iOS friendly. So any of my friends who are Android users, clear the air with me and confirm. But I think this should likely be a thing across both platforms. If it's not, I'm all about education and learning because that's how we become better. With each of these profiles, you can customize what shows up on your screens as far as what icons you see, as far as what applications you have access to, as far as what widgets are on your homepage, because you still have the app drawer at the bottom and you also have the app library on the last page. So if you need to go to certain apps, you can. However, there are those instances where you may be in a I need to get to these applications right away to do certain things. But the more that I've looked at it and the more that I think about it, the more that I realize I really don't need as much access to these apps as I thought I did. And I'm honing in on that more and more frequently. How you doing? Um, so it's a very eye opening experience because each profile on your phone can modify to what you're doing or where you are. And if I'm being raw and technical, no one in their right mind is thinking to change their profile when they're in different statuses or different places. When I say that, I mean it as you're not going to have your homepage look one way if you're in focus mode, if you're in do not disturb, versus if you're in whatever other mode. Like do not disturb. Great example. I always love having conversations about this mode because whether you love it, hate it, whatever, do not disturb is an undercover focus mode. A lot of people that call individuals have had to learn over time. So a lot of times folks will call and they'll say the phone went straight to voicemail. But there's a trick to that. There's also a trick to texting. We'll get to that in a second. But with calling, if you call someone and they are in do not disturb, all you have to do is literally wait, not even a sec. Like as soon as that call ends, you go right back and if you call them again, then it will actually have the call go through. With texting has been and will be forever the most triggering one out of them all. Because for some reason, you can put do not disturb and it shows at the bottom this person is not able to, like it's some message that comes up at the bottom that says, they're not going to receive an alert when you send this message. You can press that and still have the message go through. And a lot of times, the people who are sending you messages don't want anything. And it's not even them trying to be harmful or be rude or anything. It's just more of, I'm in an available space. Why are you not in an available space to be available to me reaching out? Because 85 to 90% of the time, we don't want anything from people. That 5 or 10% is when it's a little different. And an example that is a very huge go to is a couple weeks ago with my father's passing. A lot of people don't know, many of my friends and many people who know me know I'm not a big hit me up, call you type of person. So if I call you, something's up. Or if I call you and I know your schedule or your routine, it's me checking in just because that's just what you do sometimes. And when I called a lot of people, they was like, is everything okay? Are you good? What's going on? And when I gave the info, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Saying thoughts and prayers. If we need anything, all appreciative, nothing but positive and good love by far. But I say all of that because many times alerts and notification can and somehow do get out of hand. And when I say out of hand, I mean they can go. There are various applications that have us in a chokehold, and they should. And they have us in a chokehold by the most simplest thing. Android has it, iOS has it, and it is the circle. It's the circle of doom, and the circle of doom either can vary from. And I've seen people's messages, and I'm like, it's no way possible. And what I mean by that is text. I've known folks that will have like hundreds of messages not read. And I'm like, just silence that notification. Especially if it's a group chat, I'm silencing it. Or if it's something that comes in, I'll check it, keep it moving. Recently, With Instagram, I've turned off a lot of alerts and notifications for them because if I really need to check DMs, I'll open the app and look. And like some of them are channels that I've muted, some of them are people who are actually checking in or talking to me, which is fine. And the actual alerts themselves, sure they go off, but they're not going off anywhere near close to like, oh, I really got something that's worth. Because getting a notification because someone liked a photo, and that's a waste of a scroll. Well, that's a waste of time viewed. And I'm like, for whatever reason, it's never that I haven't paid any attention to all of this, but I pay attention to it a lot more frequently now than ever before. Like, we're not gonna we're not gonna go into the infamous screen time tangent because I think yesterday might have been one of my bigger screen time days, which those are gonna happen. Sometimes an uptick in screen time is you needing to keep your mind off of something else that's worth keeping your mind off of. However, if the time being kept off is a little too excessive, we need to move the needle a little bit. So going back to the initial point, and I won't even say wrapping this up, but just kind of talking it out a little bit. The the shutdown mode that I added, I only have a widget on my homepage. Normally, I have, and one of my followers, or may as well say friend, we're designer colleagues. She came up with this idea, and it stuck with me. Where I put all of my apps that I really use into groups, but they're grouped by color. So I have yellow, I have red, I have blue, I have black, I have orange, I have green, purple, I have multi. So like multi, if it's an app that uses obviously more than one color, it's in multi. Like Instagram, Messenger, uh, hmm, trying to think of some other ones. It's a good amount of them, and all of pretty much the whole Google suite is in multi because I don't want to put it in a certain one. Now, if it was the OG Gmail with the red, it goes to red. But I had all of those, so all my other profiles are still set up with that style, which is totally fine. But now I'm to a point and I'm in a space where I want my homepage to be as low to no information as possible. There's an app that I got introduced to a couple of months ago. I think it's been within the last month. Yeah, about the last month or two, called Fantastical. And I only like Fantastical for two things. The calendar widget is very, very resourceful. And the and when I say the widget, I mean like if you're when your screen is locked, anytime you pull it up, it will show kind of like a look ahead type of thing. Because sometimes you're like, oh, what day is this day on? Or what's next Thursday? Or, what specific date? And you can kind of project without having to do a whole lot of math. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. But the actual widget on my home screen has the time. I mean, not the time. It shows like upcoming events for each day, as well as the weather for like the next 3 or 4 days. Usually it's going to show that's like whatever day you're on. So I have that widget. I think I have the things widget. I have frequent contacts widget. These are all like put into one stack. Um, I thought I had Spark, but I don't think I have Spark on there because I may add Spark. The only problem is some point in like the next few days, I need to literally sit down and just dumpster dive, unpack Spark because there are over like when an app says 999 plus for unread total, there's a problem. Like their alert I don't have on for that exact reason. So we got the kids. I mean, I knew they were, but I'm not remembering kids are back in school. So it's more incentive to knock these walks out earlier. But I've I've been trying my hardest to go to Spark, open up the Spark app, preferably from desktop, not from tablet or phone, and start marking emails as done or archiving them or wherever they need to go. Majority of your emails, this is gonna sound nuts when I say it. There are one of three things you should be doing with most of your emails. Well, four. One is replying if it requires a reply. One is unsubscribing because a lot of stuff you're subscribed to you don't really need or you don't really read anymore. And the other two are the two traditional things that we hate doing, but we need to do it more frequently. And that is either deleting them or archiving them. Now, I left out one, but I'm going to talk about it. And that is in Spark, it's called Pin. In Gmail, we call it starring. I star a lot of emails. I will be the first to admit that. The problem becomes, great, you starred this email. Now, what the fuck are you going to do with it? And I know I'm being a little explicit, but I'm also just speaking some real about how people are with and how they treat or manage their email address. Um, I have a good amount of them pinned. Like, so Dan Cole sends an email out every Saturday. It's probably been over a year since I've really sat down and read his emails start to finish. And there's some good information in every single one of them. Even more interesting, a lot of what he's sharing in these emails, it's long form content. So long form content will, to not be over technical, but to school my techies, long form will either be email for the OGs or YouTube for the new school. All fine and dandy. All, all playing by the rules, all business as usual. The X factor becomes, okay, you've gotten the information from this long form email. What are you going to do with it? The saddest and the most harmful truth that I'm going to share is majority of the time when we get this information, we do the same thing, nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean we go back to doing what we were doing before we read the email. There are a lot of videos that I've watched that have helped me with gaining a knowledge on how to maneuver with my quote unquote productivity wheelhouse. A constant thought that comes up is, do you do you stick do you stick with, do you live and die by the ecosystem, or do you play it by ear and you come up with your own method? Well, I found that my own method works. And I'm not just saying my own method works because I use it. I say it works because I use it and it's not as quote unquote traditional. So most of the time I'm typically doing like the setup for a lot of people, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, so I'm gonna repeat it anyway. But majority of times people are in the big three or the big four. The big three and slash four is Apple Reminders, Apple Notes, Apple Calendar, and Mail. A lot of people have fussed and cussed upside down and right side up about the Mail client for Apple. So most people go to whatever their main source of email is. You're usually going to have one or two buckets that lands in. It either becomes you're a Gmail guy or you're an Outlook gal. One of the two. My wild card has lately been Spark. I did use another app before. I don't remember the name of it. It's not a travel friendly version, but it kind of takes the Gmail interface and throws it into an application, which is completely fine. Um, but Spark takes the prettiness out of the Gmail, which at the end of the day, that's what most people want. Give me my email and let me go. Literally. Um, so I'm a Spark guy. I tried Edison at one point. Edison is cool. Um, like I said, I think my big thing is always looking at how a app plays across other platforms and also how easy it is to handle what I need to handle. Because most of the time you go look at the email, it's like, okay, Amazon, blah, 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 blah. Hey, these are some recommendations and stuff we want you to buy. I'm not buying anything. I'm broke. Done. It's simple. Uh, and you can do the same thing with Gmail itself because you can always delete or archive emails that way too. Archiving just puts them in a massive option to eventually discard them. With tasks, for most people, they always say it is on the pricey side, but I've been a devoted and dedicated Things 3 guy for at least 3 or 4 years. And when I use Things 3 to its maximum potential, dangerous platform, very dangerous platform, in a good way. Uh, so that's usually my tasks. From time to time, I will kind of mix things up a little bit, and I will use Google Tasks if I'm in the Google Calendar because I also use that level. And for notes, like I said, notes is still kind of up in the air because I do digital notes, but I don't like how digital notes are treated because they can get there's no and I'm reaching what I'm about to say, but it'll make sense when I say it. There's no Zettelkaster, or there's no like method to your organization of your notes unless you categorize them as you're working on them. And the average person, no funny, don't have time for that at all. I know I don't. Most time I'm taking a note, it's in the cloud, it's gone. Uh, and that's just what it is. Um, yeah, so that's kind of our walk for today, and the reminders of remembering to, as hard as it is not to, do not allow the dots to dominate your life or your day. And those dots being the red for iOS and the orange, and I think it might be red too for Android, because they can get out of hand and they can get very tricky. But at the end of the day, you as the consumer have control over what information you acknowledge and what information you let go. And I'll add this tidbit before as I really finish up. Um, we don't think about this, but something to really consider or really look at is you do not have to absorb everyone's online presence. Sometimes I think we are so gun ho and looking at it as so and so posted. I've got to see their post. So and so DM'd me. I've got to respond to their DM. You are not obligated to a person's DM. You're just not. I've used this feature on Instagram. Many of my other friends use it too. They have a quiet mode where you don't get notifications for um, posts, comments, whatever. And some people get super, for whatever reason, they get in their feelings because they're like, I sent you a DM and you didn't. Did you see the video? Did you see the post? And 85 to 90% of the time, I'm not that in the social ecosystem that I care to like stop what I'm doing to read said post or watch said video. There's a lot of times whenever I post stuff personally, if it's a message that I feel like someone could benefit from, automatically it's going into my story. Now, that means that you have 24 hours to see that story. If you're not a story viewer, or you think my stories are boring, great. I'm not your target audience. And that's okay. But sometimes we have to post with the proper intentions and the proper things in mind. And that message hits hard for me as I finish this up because sometimes you got to keep the thing. And many times we make the thing more than what the thing needs to be. And we shouldn't do that. So manage your notifications, manage your mindset. Don't let stuff stress you out. Be kind and be patient with yourself. And most of all, and I'm saying this to myself as I finish up and as I hear the ambulance going free, give yourself grace. Grace goes very far. Patience goes very far. Sometimes we look at things and we feel like we need to be doing more. We're not doing enough. We're excessively running ourselves rampant. We're in like a mental hamster wheel and we don't have a direction. Even with me doing a lot of the disconnecting and shutting down of apps, and I said I was gonna finish, but I'm gonna let them. Hopefully, they're going further away. But if it gets closer, then we'll wrap it up. But I really want to bring the message home about reminding folks like you don't need to consume every single thing that's online. Sometimes it's hard not to, but you have to know whether you're the consumer or the creator. If you're the consumer, keep consuming them. Like things like this, when I post podcasts or when I share information, it's appreciated when anybody takes time to listen or talk about what's shared. But I also want to remind people and make it clear there's nothing wrong with not being in the space or in the state to absorb what's being talked about. Because sometimes you literally need a break from people. Like I've said this on air numerous times. I need breaks from people. I need breaks from myself sometimes. And even I'm still trying to navigate that part of the element. So that's what I got for y'all. I appreciate y'all always. Until next time, BT signing out. Take it easy.
Truly hope you all enjoyed the show. Definitely was a lot to unpack, but I know you'll walk away with something important. As I share at the end of each season, do find your way to get into podcasting if it's something you would like to do. My podcasts are currently recorded via Buzzsprout. Been very good to me. If you want to learn more about using them, definitely hit me up at thepastbtpod@gmail.com. And also the microphone that you're hearing me on is the Blue Yeti X. Have been rolling with it for over 3 years. We've been doing this ride for quite some time, so I hope someone could find this mic useful. Again, find those people who are good or helpful in what you're trying to do to be better today than you were yesterday. The primary goal is to be 1% better. Hope you all have an amazing day, and we'll be back again to do this next time.